Hello. Happy Tuesday? As I'm recording this, I think it's a Tuesday. Bruce, is it a Tuesday? My cat Bruce asleep. I think it's Tuesday. Well, whatever day it is, or night, or evening, or whatever. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome. I thought I would do something, I don't want to say slightly different, but maybe it is slightly different. So, last week, or it might have been the week before, I did the first of, I guess I'm calling these field trips, and the first one I did was going into looking at Caverns of Thracia, which is an old school module that I'm somewhat familiar with. It's kind of famous in terms of its dungeon design. We went through that a bit. Today I want to look at Stonehell. Now, unlike with Thracia, I don't know Stonehell. I bought the PDF some long time ago. It's been kind of floating around. It just was in one of those zones. I'm sure if you're in this hobby, you've probably done this a lot. You get PDFs, you buy stuff, you find stuff, you get in different deals, and they just kind of end up floating on your hard drive or your wherever, your phone, your tablet, and sometimes you get to them and sometimes you don't. I end up with so much stuff that a lot of times it takes me a long time to get to stuff. This is one of the situations, but I hear Stonehell being brought up a lot as a really good example of a Megadungeon. So I want to go into it, going to look at it, see what we can see. But unlike, say, the a rulebook read along, which is another series of videos I do, I'm not trying to go through and read it word by word, sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, page by page. I really just want to get into the meat of it, see a few things, and really try to look at as much as we can, see to suss out what do people like about this, or what do we end up liking about it, and what can we take from this for ourselves. So it's going to be a bit kind of targeted, even more targeted than in some of the more targeted rulebook read-alongs I've done. It's going to be some fumbling about as I'm not familiar with this. And let's just see what we can find out, and hopefully this will be a good format. I don't know. We shall see if this turns into something that works, or if it's going to be a lot of stumbling about in the dark, so to speak. So let me get Stonehell up. Hold on, let me get it in the full screen view. Full screen mode. Where am I? There I am. And let's see what. And if you have experience with Stonehell and you have things you like about it or things you dislike, either way, please let me know. So this is a classic Megadungeon setting for use with Labyrinth Lord and early versions of the original fantasy role-playing game. All right, I'm going to read some of the how to use this book because I think that's important, because I think people have said that some of what they really like about it is the way it's laid out, or that might even be the main thing, is it lays everything out very well. So I want to see, well, what guidance from the author do we get in terms of how to read the book. I am going to skip over stuff like we can see on this opposite page of the history. For the purpose of this video, I don't care. If I was doing a more conventional read-along, I would probably go in there. But for this video, it is not. It is beyond. It's outside the bounds of what I'm trying to accomplish. Okay, so this is, and also this is a Stonehell Dungeon Down Night Haunted Halls, which is the first of two books detailing a classic 10-level Megadungeon. It's a dungeon of the traditional style. It's purposely designed to recall the Saturday night dungeon crawls of yore, and is intended to remind both the Labyrinth Lord and the players of the type of dungeon that was once common currency of the hobby. How to use this book. Stonehell Dungeon offers a different approach to role-playing adventure. Rather than saddling the party with a predetermined goal introduced by an event or NPC, this book offers the game master a complex location filled with monsters, treasures, and special NPCs that he can use as a stage on which to craft his own series of adventures. So really what we're looking at, according to this is going to give us a sandbox. There's not going to be some kind of inciting incident. There's not going to be a quest. It's just going to be, here we're giving you this really complex location, and then you as the GM can decide how to hook the players into what's happening in this complex location, which is not terribly unlike Thracia, which didn't have, I don't think it really had some kind of plot. It was basically, hey, this thing is here, and as you start delving into it, you sort of get involved in the happenings. But I believe it didn't have it doesn't have kind of some kind of really overarching plot to go along with it. And this is more hibiscus tea for the working man. There are 3 suggested ways to use this book. The first is to run Stonehell Dungeon as presented, using the dungeon's backstory, the plots and plans of its inhabitants, and the challenges that these creatures offer as written. Even employed in this fashion, the GM will find many opportunities to create a unique adventuring location, unlike that of others used in this very same book. The second suggested method is to use Stonehell Dungeon as a framework for constructing one's own Megadungeon complex. By stripping the dungeon of any portions that don't particularly interest the GM and replacing those sections with creations of one's own, the GM can create a huge dungeon in a fraction of the time required to build one from scratch. The modular nature of Stonehell Dungeon means that entire dungeon quadrants can be removed and replaced with minimum impact on the surrounding sections, giving the game master plenty of creative leeway not normally seen in other commercially available dungeons. And then finally, the final way of using Stonehell Dungeon down night haunted halls is to do so piecemeal. Because most of the dungeon's quadrants are largely self-contained, the GM can use one or more of these dungeons sections as smaller dungeons suitable for shorter delves. Just select an interesting quadrant suitable for the character's level, block off or remove any corridors or exits that lead elsewhere, and determine the location of the dungeon's entrance. You'll have a 20-plus room dungeon ready to go. So it seems like that this is we're reading this correctly. We're going to have a kind of a modular approach in which I don't think we have an idea of how the quadrants work with the levels. Is it a whole sandwich of levels is a quadrant, or is each floor split into quadrants? But however it's set up, theoretically, we could pull these out, use them individually, pull them out, swap them with something else, or run it as a whole. Which, if all this stuff comes to pass, that's pretty cool. So we're skipping past the intro stuff. Oh, wait a minute. I do want to read. Okay, so we do get some. Hold on. There we got the. Okay, that was the history, but I do want to see. We have general dungeon features. Basically giving us. Looks like this section is giving us some default. So doors are 4 feet wide, 8 feet tall, and constructed of 5-inch thick iron banded timbers. Unless otherwise specified, they are stubborn to open and require you to, an open doors check. All uninhabited corridors and rooms, as well as those inhabited by unintelligent monsters, are without illumination. The upper levels of the dungeon are stacked one on top the other and separated by solid rock. Level 1 is located 100 feet below the surface, with level 2 60 feet below that. Level 3 is 60 feet beneath level 2 and 100 feet above level 4, and level 5 is positioned another 100 feet below level 4. The stairs that connect the levels are steep and worn smooth by traffic, often with a slight concavity in center of each riser. I do like to give us these default some general things. The only thing is just from a layout perspective, it would be nice if they kind of bolded them so you could just read them at a glance. But I like that you have this little section where you can just kind of come back to it. And if the players are asking about, oh, what is this particular door? You could basically tell them, hey, unless I tell you otherwise, all the doors are this kind of standard. Or you can wait until you've gone through the dungeon a little bit and they've seen some doors. You can say, hey, yeah, all the other doors are basically going to follow this same design you've noticed. If it's not of the same design, I will call it out to you. And then it is good to know. I like having some notion of how, if the levels of the dungeon are close or far. And of course, there could be practical reasons why you'd want to know if there's just 5 feet of stone floor beneath the floor of whatever level you're on and the level beneath it. Kind of be good to know because spells and other effects might come into play, whereas 100 feet is a lot more formidable of a barrier. Residents of Stonehell. All right, we've got berserkers, hobgoblins, inmates, kobolds, and that's about it. And then we have some notes on using the dungeon as a campaign, and we have a dungeon restock table. And this is, I guess, they're using a table created by David Bowman. And you roll on the table in between adventures to determine if a room the PCs have previously explored has become home to new monsters and treasure. And it looks like there's basically a 33% chance that a monster or a monster with treasure will have moved into a room. Otherwise, empty. And then we have some notes on customizing the dungeon. Simplest way to put your own stamp on the dungeon is to change the contents. Yeah, that probably makes sense. And then they talk about creating your own quadrants. And now they're talking about some notes about large-scale additions to the dungeon. Just make it larger, and I guess apparently some of the quadrants feature hallways to nowhere that you can use to add more sections, which is cool. And then you can add sub-levels, and there's certainly room in between some of the main levels for sub-levels. Stonehell Dungeon's blank canvas. There are some features introduced in Stonehell Dungeon that have been purposely left wide open for the Labyrinth Lord, aka the GM, to build upon. These bits and pieces will never be given official explanation later. Supplements so the Game Master can use them in whatever way he desires without fear of being contradicted by future source material. Although there are many smaller mysteries to be explored, some of the larger features are summarized below. It's a very interesting idea. And this was in, what was it, B1, Search the Unknown had this, where it had blank rooms and things that were literally put there for the GM to fill in. I think people now kind of frown upon that. But at least, they're following, I mean, they said clearly at the beginning, this is taking a lot of inspiration from sort of early, or the classic kind of dungeons, and that was something that they do. I think there's even a few other modules I'm thinking of, like, this names escape me at the moment. What did was it Lost City? I think also had some areas that you could fill in, or basically said about, hey, now you're in the Lost City, kind of put whatever you want here, or something like that, where it had an area where it's basically open up into GM, fill this in with whatever you like, or put something in this level if you want to. So it's not unheard of. And I know, or at least I remember a while back reading comments from people who were disappointed in these things, or felt that they were kind of cheating people, because you're producing a product and the product's incomplete. Who else will put out a product that's incomplete? Well, I put out a book and then leave chapters blank, blah, blah, blah. But at the same, while I get that, I see that, and I can say, yeah, it makes sense. And I've said that before with stuff like, hey, if I'm getting something from you, and if you have an idea what should be here, then tell me. At the same time, when you're dealing with these kind of dungeons, there's the concern of placing them in a world that exists outside the dungeon itself. So someone wants to run Stonehell, it's not going to be running it in a vacuum. They're going to be placing it in their world. And all these little open ends can be the connective tissue between Stonehell and the world, and it makes it more customizable, because maybe the main entrance doesn't make sense to have in a certain place, but you have one of these hallways to nowhere that you can connect into something else. Maybe that's how you want to have your party gain entrance. You don't want to have them get there through the surface. You want to have them get there through some other area, and you want to link it into maybe a starter kind of dungeon or some other structure that you've made. So you want to keep the sort of main entrance as it is, but maybe you want the party to come in low and then have to come into some other level or some other part of the level and then find that main exit. Maybe that's something you want to do. Whole lot of reasons why you might want to do this. And this isn't, and part of the whole game is that we are kind of creating and adding all this sort of great tapestries of content. And so having these little threads that, sure, on the one hand, you can look at and say, wow, why didn't they stitch these threads together? But on the other hand, they're saying to you, these threads are loose so that you can stitch them onto the loose threads of the rest of your game world, your campaign, etc. So some of the things that they've left, they're going to leave sort of mysterious for the GM to use as they will. We have the wind obelisks, the wandering statue, the cenotaph, the forgotten chambers on level 1, the children of Yig, levels 2 and 5 are Ig or Ig, I'm not sure how we pronounce that, and then the unknown resident of the mausoleum on level 3. And then we get some adventure seeds, goblin raids, laboratory raiders against the trolls, and secret enemies. And I do like that they not only have kind of the in bold sort of what it is, but then a little bit of what that adventure hook would be. They call them seeds. And then some of the areas that would be highlighted or would be linked to that seed. So for example, the goblin raids would link to the old gatehouse that's on level 0C, and then also, or the hobgoblins on level 2, and you could here they're saying depending on the strength of the PCs, but you could have them all be together, that the goblins in the old gatehouse are related to the hobgoblins in level 2, however you'd like to do that. And then there are similar locations called out for the other hooks, which is cool. Then we also have a rumor table. 20 rumors, some true, some false. And now we get the surface level master map. Mappa. Kind of gives me a Caves of Chaos vibe here somewhat. It's just this little canyon. What do they call these canyon valleys? I always have a hard time describing. Every time in my game, and my players they're going to be moving away from it now, but they've been in the Caves of Chaos, and I always end up not having a good word. There's got to be, I'm sure there's some kind of technical, not too technical, but some sort of word to describe is it just a canyon valley? Is that what it would be called? Is there a name for one of these dead end valleys? It looks like a finger pushed into the side of the hill. Null Terminator. Hey, Null Terminator says box canyon. Is that what it's called? A box canyon? I need some names. I need some names for that. What is this area here? Level OC, the Gates of Hell. So that's the inside of this building here that I guess was supposed to cut off or completely wall in this box canyon, but it's been broken. Is that debris? Looks like debris. Do we have a thing for debris? What do we have here? It's a pillar? No. Rubble? I don't know. But anyway, we got some breaks in there, and then we have the interior. Where do we... Whoops. I might need to break this down so I can zoom in there. I'm trying to see. So where are our entrances to the actual place? So this is how we get into, at least... I can't zoom in here. All right, let's see. Okay, so start at level 18. So in room 18, we do have stairways going down. What are 9 and 6? I think we'll have to... there might be something where I'm going to have to go back and this is where things get messy, where I might need to go back and forth referencing things. I'm not sure if the dashed lines are supposed to be... Well, what is it supposed to be? Let me see. What is the... Yeah, I should probably go to the actual key here. Dash line. Okay, that says underground tunnel. What are those underground rooms? So that's a dashed line. That's solid line. ... What is that? I don't think that's a tent or market stall. Is it? No. Because my first impulse wants to say that these are underground, that we're just getting it, but I'm guessing that's probably not it. Okay, so I get that's underground tunnel, which is kind of what it looks like, but it's not a tunnel. All right, we'll probably just have to get into the descriptions. One of the things I'm going to be curious to follow, what are those little X's? X. I don't see here. X's. That's supposed to be a trail. Maybe that's a trail. This right here. I'm always looking at these layouts. So the interesting thing here, if we're looking at it from a area of interest perspective, what do we see? What do we see in here? What do we see that we might is interesting? I think the first thing is there's not just one entrance. I mean, it seems like there's one main stairwell down, which would be in this, I'm guessing, C area. I don't see any other stairs going down, though there might be. Maybe you can do, maybe that pool leads somewhere, we don't know. But in terms of this area as the doorway, it's fairly complex. It's not just here's the box canyon and then smack dab in the back of it is the thing. I mean, it is there. I mean, you look at it and we could say one thing. Okay, so there's a certain complexity around this area, but they've also maintained some simplicity. If the party's coming from outside the canyon, they either go through this Gates of Hell thing or they go around. If they just hold the course and to the back, this area marked C here, it's definitely the widest. You look at these different openings. We've got some, looks like cave openings, cave opening. We got doorway, little pool, pond, open passageway. We can see here that this one is clearly the most important in terms of size. and it is exactly, or as near as can be, centered on the entrance. So when you look at it, you're going to look, and you can't. How many feet are we talking about? 100. What's the feet for feet? I don't know if those are 5 or 10 foot squares. It probably says somewhere. Nope. Does it say somewhere? 10 foot squares. So I don't know. So what was that? 100 feet, maybe somewhere in there. So you can look at from the perspective as the GM, from the perspective of the players. If you're just trying to get to this entrance, we got to get down to the Stonehell, gang. All right, you this whatever this gates of hell building. You can go around. You can go in. Great. We come through. Boom. What do we see? We look down into the heart of this box canyon. What do we see? And we could see, okay, well, maybe the trees maybe blocking a little bit here, but presuming you basically have line of sight, more or less. Maybe it's a little bit obstructed, obscured. Actually, not even really. Looks like those trees end right there. So basically have unobscured sight down, I'm guessing, some big doorway. Looks big, looks imposing, certainly bigger, wider than anything else. Bam, there it is. And if you just want to go hustle straight there and go into that room and head down the stairs, you got it. Score. Down to level, I presume, level 1. But there's all this other interesting things here. So when you enter in the canyon, sure, that's directly, fairly line of sight of you. If you square up to the middle of the canyon, yeah, you're going to see that. But then you also say, okay, we have different, I don't know how steep these canyons, or this canyon or hillsides are supposed to be, but looks like you have different kind of strata or levels, and you have another smaller doorways to either side. I would say that from, if you're in this area, you would definitely see this the entrance here to this number 10 area, number 2 area. Since it's elevated, definitely 16, probably 13. I give you 4, and that one. This one's definitely hidden. I would say that this one's probably at least obscured somewhat, or at least it's further away, so you might get a touch of it. I'm not sure how I would do that one. But you got a lot of points of interest. So the party is going to be free to look around. Now, I hope we'll see that you're rewarded for doing that. Not necessarily with like it's like in say what the Tomb of Horrors, where you go in the door, you could see it's a death trap. But just in terms of, if anything else, just getting some more context, right? Okay, there's the main doors. We see that. What are in these other buildings? Maybe we can get some clue as a party. Maybe we don't know, we haven't been here before. We don't know. We don't know what's here. So we can look around. So here we get some stuff about the surface level. So this is this box canyons on the side of some foothills. That Gates of Hell was an old curtain wall and gatehouse, which once barred entrance to the canyon. We kind of figured that out. Much of the canyon has been picked over by many bands of adventurers who explored Stonehell, but a few secrets and small treasures remain to be discovered. Although better adventuring opportunities and greater treasure lie within the dungeon proper, the GM should allow the PCs to take their time exploring the surface level, especially if they're inexperienced players. This canyon makes a good location for novice players to get the hang of their characters and the rules of the game before facing the greater challenges that await them below. And then we have some monster lists we got bats, black bears, brigands, giant centipedes. Always like a good giant centipede. Crab spiders, another favorite. Fire beetles, goblins, green slimes, just some herd animals. Kobolds, mountain lions, phantasms, rabid raccoons, not named Rocky, skeletons, spitting cobras, sturges, and wasp swarms, and wolves. So from a meta standpoint, you get a couple of things from this entrance area. The party gets a chance to maybe get some better context about the dungeon, though of course you also get to talk about how, like the notes say, hey, there might be a few things you might find, but it's mostly picked over. You're going to have to get in here. You're going to get a taste of what Stonehell has going on up here, but you're not getting more than that, amuse-bouche up on the surface. You're going to have to go down. And also, if you are bringing in new players or new PCs or both, they get a chance to kind of test things out up here, get the lay of the land, figure out things that work before they get into more serious territory. This, I think, is good. Level A is the Canyon East. That's this area back here. A. I'm gonna kind of skip through some of this stuff. Get a nice simple layout. It's easy to tell. We have the kind of main headers, subheaders, overview, population, special dungeon notes. Even though we're on the surface, it's still kind of part of the dungeon. And then we have some important NPCs. And they give us the mini map. Oh, I was looking in the wrong place. Never mind. I thought that east, I guess I should have known east was over on that side, not the other one, but I looked at the A. See, what I did was I saw the A. Whoops. Hold on a minute. I saw the A over here, and I thought, oh, this must be it, but no, that's a different A. So there, oh, I see. You know what? Here it is. I missed this line here demarcating it. So we actually have two connected bits. Canyon East, Canyon West. 0A, Canyon East, 0B, Canyon West. Okay. And then we get a zoomed in map of Canyon East. And we got some wandering monsters. Once per hour, 1 in 6 chance. And they split them up between daylight and nighttime. Bears, brigands, herd animals, mountain lions, wolves in the daytime. And the nighttime, it's brigands, kobolds, goblins, and sturges. And we get some more of the features in here. I guess that is debris. So features are marked with letters. A, B, A through whatever. And then the rooms are marked with 1, 2, 3, 4, which I think is seems like a good system. And the only thing it just gets confusing a little bit is when you have to just keep in mind the 0A, right? Because that's what I jumped to. Oh, A. And I was looking at A, feature A, as opposed to 0A. We have some notes. The flame chalk message. Scrawled upon the wall in flame chalk is the following message. R. As agreed, the jewels await you 2 levels down in the chamber past the acolyte's cells. How you deal with the wasps is your own concern. And then, okay, so here's a couple things I like. So I like the note, which is basically an in situ extra adventure hook. Because if your party just happen to wander through here, or they don't know what they want to do, they come across this message, it gives them extra impulse. Okay, treasure. We know exactly where it is, or maybe not exactly, but we know basically where it is. We just got to go get it. So in the absence of any other adventure hooks sinking their teeth into the party, you've got this one which just appeals to, oh, we found this message for treasure. You think it's still there, probably, and then for the GM, it's letting you know, okay, here's what it's referring to, which I like it. So we get kind of, here's what the party sees in the fiction, and hey, here's where, if they do operate on this and we need to make note of it or come back and check it, we know exactly what we have to cross-reference. And then we get this new item, which is called Flame Chalk, which I guess, what's the fanciness? Something to do with flames? Any writing created by a stick of flame chalk is invisible to naked eye, but the substance produces a faint heat that makes it legible to creatures with infravision. Oh, nice. That's cool, and it makes sense. If you've got creatures with infravision, intelligent ones, they would probably try to make use of that, especially since they can hide the messages from folks without infravision. They mentioned dwarves here as who created them, and that totally makes sense, presuming your dwarves have infravision. Infravision. Oh, and this is on important NPCs. There's Cole the Black Bear. Nice. We get a room key. From a layout perspective, it's very clean and neat, but man, I would love a little bit, just a little bit more spacing in between some of these, or some way to just kind of break them up a little bit. Now on the west side of the canyon, same kind of notes. A new magic item, the Ring of the Scintillating Orb. Cool. Fetch lights. These are spectral motes of illumination that occasionally appear in the canyon near the dungeon entrance. Oh, that's cool. Oh, interesting. Anyone catching a glimpse of a fetch light must save her spells at +2, or become convinced that doom awaits them in Stonehell. This premonition manifests itself as a -1 penalty to all rolls made during the expedition into the dungeon. The self-induced curse can be lifted by either a remove curse spell or by surviving an adventure of reasonable duration within the halls of the dungeon. That's kind of interesting, because I guess you hope, Ovaltine Patrol says, that's some dense text. It is indeed. Now, this is not, I didn't see when this first came out. This is not a new dungeon. And if they were going to do a reprint of Stonehell, that might be something I'll look at. Can we, even if we have to shrink the font slightly to just get some spacing on some of that, can we do that? Could we lean in on some symbology to make it a little bit easier to read? The fetch lights, I was gonna say, are interesting because it almost does the opposite thing, which I might have expected, which is that I would have seen that let's say the fetch light comes and that missing the save would cause you to run towards Stonehell as another way of pulling party in, and even adding a little more interest is, does the party get separated as three people fail their saves and just start running hell bent for leather towards the entrance to the dungeon? Could be really fun to play with it, and maybe what they do, you could set up some saves about, okay, if they're, how they can get a save, or kind of, how far do they go? Is there a room on that first level that they're trying to get to, and they just have to, every turn they just have to keep moving towards? Great. This one's kind of the opposite. So you get this one, and it actually makes you not want to go in, which is an interesting choice for being at the entrance of the dungeon. Now, if everybody gets it, it's going to be hard, I think, to get the party in there. They're going to want to remove the curse somehow or do something else, or just pack up and say, I guess we're not going into Stonehell, because, and I get that as a party, because if everybody's got some -1 running penalty and you're not particularly, say you're not that high level, that's not a small a penalty. It's not just the -1 all rolls made. That's pretty hefty, I think, all things considered. And then I would say, like, well, I guess we're not going in until we can get the curse removed. I mean, that I could totally see a party going, well, we're not going, or even if not all the party, but say 2/3 of the party or some majority of the party. It's like, look, we're all at -1 and we haven't even gotten in the front door yet. And we gotta, who knows? And you don't, this is not player facing particularly. So you don't know how far you have to go before, even if it was player facing, what is a reasonable duration? I might say, like, you have to spend the day in there, and you have to spend the night, say maybe you have to spend a whole day in level 1. Something like that. Maybe I'd give it something specific, and the party wants to hole up in one room or whatever. Maybe maybe a whole day is too long. I'm not sure. Maybe we want to change it up. But it is interesting because you would think that you wouldn't want to put up a barrier that literally is going to send the party wanting to go elsewhere. But that could. If you've got sort of larger narrative reasons or ticking clocks that you've created to push them into it, then it might not matter. It just puts them at a disadvantage. Otherwise, yeah, let's go to town and see what we can do about this curse. And the only other thing I can think of is that you have the curse, if there's some room in the dungeon that removes the curse. And then if they go back to whatever the nearest town is, someone can tell them when they go, say, please, can you cure us of this curse? And they're like, we're not able to, but we've heard, the story is that the only way to remove it is to face your fears down in there and something, right? Maybe there's a little piece of verse or poetry that you could have kind of guide the players towards some feature of that first level of the dungeon to remove it. But that's a tough one. Okay, we get some more features. We get the room key, which is, again, very, very dense. The one that's most important is the Hell's Entrance Hall. Graffiti-covered walls and the bare, well-worn floor, ceiling arches 30 feet overhead. A spiral staircase descends down a hole in the center of the floor. The graffiti consists of the names of adventurers who have come this way and messages written in kobold, i.e. clean up trash, dumb men. That's funny. The spiral stairs descend 100 feet down before emerging from the ceiling of Area 1 on level 1A, which we will get to presumably shortly. So I think one thing to notice here is we're not getting no flavor text. So as a GM, you're going to need to, you're entering this area, which is, I think, another reason to make sure I can find it, because when I'm on the move and I'm coming through and maybe I'm on this page as I'm describing the outer parts of the canyon, okay, and they decide, all right, we're going through the stone archway carved into the cliff face. Great. And I got, oh, where is 18? Da, 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 da. Now I got to read through here. So having some kind of key or some, or just making it easier to kind of spot that text might be helpful. But again, it is very clean. Gives you what you need to know. If you like having the speak aloud text, well, you're kind of out of luck at this point. Maybe inside the dungeon it'll change, but I'm guessing it's going to stay the same. On the other hand, if you find those speak aloud text to be a waste of time and space, then this is good. I'm torn when it comes to read aloud text. Of course, beautiful text of any sort is beautiful in its own right to read. I often find though that if it's when it's not done well, which I think is a lot of the time, frankly, it's just bad bad writing. So the if you don't feel like you're gonna nail it and really get something good and have a point of view and not just be overwrought with I don't know, just all kinds of stereotypical sort of wording. Like if you don't have a really good kind of voice for it, I would rather just give me, hey, there's graffiti covered walls, bare, well worn floor that's bare. Just give me those things and I'll put it together in the moment myself, which is probably going to be more organic anyway. But of course, if it is beautiful text, I'll read it even if I don't intend to speak it. Null Terminator says, looks like adventuring to remove was in that graph. Okay. It is, yes. So what I was going to say, Null Terminated, was that with the fetch lights, yes, you can go back in the dungeon. You are supposed to go back in the dungeon, or you spend some time in the dungeon to remove it, but I would just prefer it's just more concrete, because it's kind of like a reasonable amount of time. What's reasonable? The party doesn't know this, right? No one's who can. I doubt anyone. I mean, I can't imagine that. Maybe someone would know the fetch lights that, oh, they go back to town. Hey, we got this curse. We got to remove it. Oh yeah, you got to go spend some time in the dungeon. Maybe I just think you could just make it a little bit more concrete. You got to find. We've heard there's a fountain, and if you drink from the fountain down there, that'll do it. Something like that. That just makes it kind of concrete, as opposed to, well, it'll last so long, and then just make it more concrete details. Because they put it at the GM's discretion, which is, nothing particularly wrong with the discretion, but I guess that just means I'll end up rolling dice or something. And, and I was already thinking, oh, maybe they got to spend a night. Then I'm thinking, man, a night, 24 hours, that's a long time to be in the dungeon. So then maybe I'm making it overly difficult, just in my zeal at that moment. Whereas I think it's kind of neat. Just adds to the dungeon if there's some information out there, something that would send me to try to find a specific room in level 1. So now the way the setup kind of I have in mind, it's known in some kind of local fairy tale, fable, nursery rhyme. They can suss out. Maybe they'll know if there's somebody from the area, if this is starting. And then it not only has them going just down level 1 to explore, and I've removed the idea that they're going to kind of go down and explore, but just try to hole up somewhere. Okay, we're going to find the nearest broom closet. We're all going to stick in. We're going to use all our iron spikes to spike the door shut, and we're just going to sit tight for 12 hours. Like, I don't want them to do that, or I don't want them constantly think, is now enough? Is now enough? Whereas I can say, okay, you got to find the fountain of the fallen angel and drink from its waters, and that will do it. Then it's like, okay, we have a concrete goal, and either they can find it fast, quickly, they can find it slowly, maybe they'll never find it at all, but just kind of gives it something, pulls them towards the room. It gives them kind of a little bit of a little sub goal on that level 1, depending on if they have it or not. Even if not all of them are suffering from it, then at least maybe the 1 or 2 who are, then want to find this particular room if they do the research to find it. And even if they don't, I can set it up in the room. If they get there can be some context that references the fetch lights that might give them a clue of, oh, this is how we get rid of it. As opposed to just, oh yeah, spend some blah blah amount of time, you decide, kind of hand wave it away. That was what I was thinking. We do get some gatehouse graffiti in the gatehouse. Venture down past the living caves, if it's gold, yes, seek. All right. And you get, all right, and there's a little map. So this is all just graffiti. That's cool. I like that. And one thing that the graffiti and all this stuff does is it gives it a sense of history. I think a lot of times with dungeons, we want to get so much into the history of the dungeon, but here it is you think about, okay, well, this place has been here for whatever thousands of years, and people probably been coming here, unless it's something where the first people that have been here in a millennia, different creatures, intelligent creatures have been coming here with various goals and various levels of success and completing their goals here, and what have they left behind. And one of the things they can do is write these messages to each other, to their friends, to their enemies, to their children, to their parents, whatever. And you get to see all that, and that makes it feel like a lived in place. It makes it feel like, okay, this place didn't just appear like the lion headed or tiger headed cave in Aladdin, just out of the dunes. Like, oh, it's been here. People are coming here. They've been coming here. Maybe we could leave our own messages. You could even run it if you wanted to do a West Marches type thing, and I wanted to have this featured heavily. This could even be like that tavern. Talking about West Marches, how you can have a central place that basically stores the knowledge of your campaign. That graffiti could be your spot. It could be, oh hey, in this gatehouse, as we're coming and going, we can leave our own messages here. We can use that fire chalk maybe, or we could just write our own messages, add onto our map, whatever that is here. So I think that's a neat concept. And it kind of solves the question over, well, who's been here before? Well, lots of people have, but not everyone's as good as you. How far they got, we don't know. Some of them are bragging about clearing the whole place out, but then clearly other people are like, yeah, I don't think you did. We get a monster phantasm. We get a couple of magic items, a chill guard parasol, it's a flimsy umbrella, a journey cloak. All right, let's get down. Oh boy. Okay, so I'm guessing these are these quadrants that we talked about. How are we doing on time? Already 45 minutes. All right, so we got 3 quadrants here. So it seems like these are kind of laid out a little bit like geomorphs. I mean, obviously very specialized geomorphs. They connect at certain areas, but I see now we can see now what they were talking about in terms of how you could, in short order, pull out one of these geomorph quadrants, just stick your own thing in there, and then just make the connections where you need to. Got, so you could kick these around. Fairly complicated, lots of rooms here. I like that we have you get some titles to kind of give us an idea of what to expect. So level 1A is Hell's Antechamber, 1B is the Quiet Halls, 1C is the Contested Corridors, and 1D are the Kobold Corners. And this is very much in the old school design. Notice not really any curves in the rooms or anything. The rooms are not crazy. They're all pretty much squares and rectangles, except for the natural chambers. But it's definitely big. It looks like each one of these, and they're all numbered separately too, which is pretty good. So we have 34, 36, 38, 39 rooms in 1A. 1B has 25 rooms, but then there's a lot of these, I'm not sure what they are, CPT. So I'm not sure if they're special. The Contested Corridors has 33 rooms, and then 39, 40 rooms in the Kobold Corners. So lots of rooms, lots of little loops. And by loops, I mean kind of different ways you can sort of go through the dungeon. So you can see here in the Contested Corridors, we're coming in from Kobold Corners. You see here you can kind of make a rough loop in that, what do I call it, southwest quadrant. We had another loop kind of going in the, several loops in the northeast. One, it gives you, so what the loops do, and I'm still kind of, it's not something like I'm an expert in these kind of loops. What I've seen, and I've seen this referenced in some videos about creating video game levels, is that having these kind of loops, in terms of as players when you're moving through it, gives it a more organic, and not organic in the like it's made of living flesh, but just it feels more natural. I think a lot of our structures tend to have sort of variations on loops. If you think about the loops office floors usually make, where you know the main elevator bay and you go left or right, and then they tend to kind of make loops going around. Maybe you have another kind of loop, and just the way different hallways connect. And by having loops, if you think in terms of loops, then you're sort of building in having multiple entrances or exits. It's not just linear. You're going to be able to make decisions that will take you to different areas, but then kind of come back. So it just adds a lot of variability in terms of the approaches you can take while connecting them, and I think it tends to make them feel less mechanical than other methods. And so we can see here we've got lots of these kind of looped areas. And then in a dungeon like this, say in the contested corridors, there's a lot. It's not totally symmetrical, but there are definitely these symmetrical elements, which are things that as players you can lean on a lot. Okay, you have this kind of room over here, you have this kind of room over here, and you can start to try to make assumptions. So for example, let's just say that these bars weren't here and it was a secret door instead. But we'd seen that, oh, there's kind of doors all the way around here. There's exits all the way around here. Each one of these rooms of this type, as we go around this loop, has 4 exits, 3 exits. I think as a player, you might go, we've gone through this whole part of the structure. Everything seems to be completely symmetrical in terms of entrances and exits in these diamond or hexagon. Is that hex or is that 1, 2, 3, or octagon maybe? Octagonal rooms, and yet this room down here doesn't seem to have one. I wonder if it would be worth checking that wall that seems to be blank. And maybe they look more closely, and then you can feed them a little detail of, well, looking closely, the construction doesn't seem to quite match up. The color of the stone is ever so slightly off in terms of the rest, or if there's an elf and they make their roll, whatever, or they just do whatever they do. But there you have a way of, okay, using that symmetry of the spaces to, in a sense, highlight that what doesn't look right, which is then, becomes a secret door. There's a nice mix of natural areas and different features. I'm going to kind of breeze through the rooms, because I'm already 10 minutes left, but just because I want to kind of get a sense of what we're seeing in these different rooms. But you can see here, just on this floor, if we put the whole floor together, there's, what do we say? There was, 40... I mean, there's well over 100 rooms here, right? If we add them all together, 38, 39, just between 1 and 4, that's about 80, 100, like 130, 140 rooms, somewhere in there. So you get a lot. Whoops, so which room key is this one for? We have central passageway, north watch post, or is that, hold on a minute. Is that from, I think that might be the gates of hell. I think, hold on, let me just, okay. Yes, so this actually pertains, I think, to the gates of hell. So we're going to see the room descriptions. We get a nice overview of level 1. We get the monster list for level 1, and then we get the overview of level 1A. Because remember, each level, or I don't know each level, but it seems like it's split into 4 quadrants. So 1A is this quadrant. So we get all about the whole level as a whole. Then we get into this area. Overview, population, special dungeon notes. All good. I do like this. I do like these sections because it's something as a GM I can read as I'm prepping. It's kind of a little bit, I mean, both of these things, the level 1, this kind of setup, and the other one, the things that I can kind of prep in advance. So if I was running my game tonight and I knew they were entering, I presume either we ended it when they were about to go down to level 1 or whatever, I just kind of have a good sense if they're going, or even if I don't, and they end up coming here, I can say, okay, while you guys are doing this, I can scan these things and get a good sense for what's going on. And that's kind of the only reason why I really like this layout. I would just like a little bit more tweak the layout a little bit so I could kind of call things out to me, because if I do have to look at this kind of at a glance, it'd be nice to not only get these headers, but to be able to get a little bit of, okay, what are the important things I need to know about level 1 that you can kind of really call out to me so I can just make sure to get it. Okay, they're going into level 1A, Hell's Antechamber overview. Okay, what are a couple things that it can just pop out at me? A couple of bullets, or using bold, or using a color, or using some kind of symbology, and say, okay, what do I make sure I need to know? Same thing about the population. Like, what do I really need to know? Dungeon notes is less, because here they bolded the Wheel of Fortune, so I got that one. And then I like that you have a table here for that. Important NPCs. That's what? Snorri Broadshoulders. The dwarf. A dwarf. But maybe kind of bold that off, and then we get a new spell, which is great. Now we get in the details of 1A. So we get a grand foyer, a ruined kitchen, a feast hall, a burned room, ancient bedchamber, a refuse room, eternal silhouettes, some cadaver storage, a rocky oracle, a dormitory, an ancient battleground. So that gives us the first 11 rooms. So that takes us to here. Remember, as before, so the rooms are numbered, which is 9. Like I said, I wouldn't mind having a little bit more spacing in there. No read aloud text, which is fine, but your miles may vary, I suppose. All the rooms have been named. All the rooms have something in them in terms of description. We haven't seen anything that's just a blank room. I don't mean the rooms. I know they already said, hey, some areas can be left blank for you to fill in. I'm talking about where they just left a room blank. Said, this room has no purpose that we can discern. That is where I will say I feel like things are a little bit lazy. When you get to like, oh yeah, there's a couple just empty rooms. Rooms aren't empty. I mean, they can be empty of stuff, but in game terms, empty seems to mean it's just a room with no purpose, no history, no theme. It is empty of anything. Now, a room can be empty, but there should be something in it. Let me know what was it? What was this room before? What was it? Somebody's sleeping chambers? Was it a garbage pit? Was it a torture room? Was it storage? Was it a playroom? Was it somebody's dining hall? Was it a kitchen? What was it? Like, what was it before it was destroyed? Now, maybe nothing's usable. Maybe there's just piles of rubble where things used to be. But tell me what it used to be. What was it? By saying empty, to me, that's just lazy on your part, because it's like, well, I wanted to put a room here just to have a room, and it doesn't actually serve any purpose. It never served any purpose. It had no purpose. It's just, there's nothing. But I wanted to, like, if I had said to myself, I need to have 30 rooms in this dungeon, and I get down to 25, and I'm out of inspiration, so I just say, well, I'm just gonna scatter some just rooms of different sizes. I don't know, empty. Like that to me is the part where I say, yeah, that's lazy. Give me something. And look, less is more. If you run out of inspiration at 25 rooms, and you're saying I got to have 30, no, you don't have to have 30. 25 is just fine. I'd rather have 10 really strong spaces than 50 where 10 are really strong and the rest are just or just nothing. Don't just pack in what you think is content. It's not even really content at all. It's just an empty space for whatever reason. We haven't seen that yet. That's not to say they won't have blank rooms, empty rooms, but we haven't seen it yet. So that's the first 11 rooms. So even something like graffiti covered room, that's fine. I don't need more than that. I don't need a whole room. Not every room has to have a deep history or even a history that's discoverable, but every room is going to be used for something. And even at one point in time, and hopefully there's at least, you can make it, even if it's just atmospheric, because I want to be able to tell my players, okay, this used to be some kind of kitchen, but no longer, but you can see stuff. There's still some scarring on the floor for where there used to be a fire pit or something, or there's pottery sherds, or you can see some small bones, or whatever. Like, I just want to throw some stuff in there, even if in terms of the adventure, there's nothing in there. I want to be able to explain it or give them something. And if it is just totally clean, then that to me, as a player, should tell me something. Like maybe a gelatinous cube swept by in here and cleaned out the room. That's why there's absolutely nothing in it. And it seems pristine and empty. That should almost be a warning sign. Anything that's that clean and just empty like that in a dungeon should be sending off alarm bells. It should mean something. Ovaltine Patrol says a table for what unspecified rooms used to be could be a neat little project. Yeah, it's probably already been done. Ovaltine Patrol. I have to imagine somebody's done that. High vaulted chambers, Orc captain's room, common rooms. All right, I'm really just gonna go through here. False dragon's den. That's cool. Cave, big eyes, cluttered storeroom, a cistern, a devil lizard statue, giggling skull shrine. Nice. The giggling skull shrine, altar of bones, gritting stone skull on the wall, savors spells if altars touched or laugh hysterically for 1d6 turns, which doubles the chance of wandering monsters. There's a secret room that contains religious vestments and a needle-trapped coffer holding some stuff. That's cool. So this was once a prison at some point, or at least parts of this were a prison, which explains maybe why you have shrines and things, but no cultists that are operating out of them, because these were shrines that were built by the prisoners for the prisoners. And although there might be some prisoners running around, I think they're on different places. There's no ongoing, cult of the giggling skull. An alternative said there are tables for that in the 5th edition DMG and potentially in the Tome of Adventure Design in terms of identify or giving identities to unspecified rooms. That's cool. I'll have to check a look at that. The 5e DMG is not bad. I think it unfortunately gets overlooked for a lot of things. Let's see, where are we on time? All right, so we don't have a lot of time left. I'm gonna just breeze through the quiet halls. I think what we can say from here is I think we've gotten a good sense of the layout, which I like. Probably could be modernized a little bit, just given a little bit of TLC. It is very clean. Some points I think the layout's a little bit tight, and I could use, let it breathe a little bit. But of course, there are always lots of concerns when you're making these kind of products. There's a lot of content in here, and so to get it into presumably a reasonable page count, I didn't get into how many pages this is altogether. Let's see, we've got level D. We got how many levels are in here? Level 3, level 4. Cycling through. I should probably look at this appendix really quick. So, but let's see. We got 119 pages till we get to the appendix. Oh, here we go. Well, this is cool. We got a dungeon dressing and container contents. Although even the barest of chambers in Stonehell is given a thumbnail sketch of its contents, GMs will wish to dress the rooms and hallways with additional details to help bring the dungeon to life. A list of 100 additional bits of dungeon dressing is provided below. There you go. And this is a percentage roll. All the way 1 to 100, so you can get lots of additional stuff. And that's for just kind of dungeon dressing, so that is nice. I mean, I didn't feel like that was a big problem here with stuff being empty, but even then they give you a table to fill in some things. You could probably, since these are all, what's the word I'm looking for? So the one thing I like is kind of pivot tables for this kind of things, or something similar, because you just, with D100 tables, it's not going to be a big deal but maybe over a whole campaign, you might end up rolling similar things a bunch. So the pivot tables are where you're putting together multiple columns is nice, because I think it just gives you more. Instead of having just 100 options, it just gives you a bunch more. But still, you got 100 different things you can put in there. Erasmus Expeditions is here. Hey, howdy, Erasmus. Thanks for joining. And now we get to the containers, chests and wardrobe contents. And you can also get crates and barrels contents. And then we have another appendix on special monsters, like the Nixthesis, which is an extra planar creature, the plated mage, magical mechanical monstrosity, the Vrillia, ancient subterranean race. We got stats for all this stuff. Oh, can you be a Vrillia player? Let me see. Can you become Aurelia? I don't know, but they give you a it's hit dice. I see hit dice and spell. So once they get to 5 hit dice, they could potentially have spells, and they get some spell. That's cool. You probably could create a race for that, or an actual playable race if you wanted to. And then we get 131 pages. I'm just going to go quickly through some of these. I'm just really looking at the layouts. So looking at this, what are my thoughts? Or if I was going to ask myself, well, what do I think about this? Why do I feel like people have? I feel like I've seen a lot commented on Stonehell being an excellent example of a mega dungeon. So I think the first thing I would say is, even though I have some quibbles about the layout, or maybe I should say I think that you could improve the layout in some manners. I think it has a very nice, simple, clean layout. I like having multiple copies of the map, kind of putting you where you need to, so that they'll give you on level 5, they'll give you the whole level 5 dungeon, for example. Here you go, the master map. Bam. At this point, it's a lot of map, and I think if they just gave you this one version, look, if you've looked through old school modules, you've seen some crazy maps on the back of those old modules that you've had to pull out and put your thumb or your finger or use a pencil point to orient yourself and the party, and then figure out everything, and then cross-reference from here. And that's how I thought they were going to have it. But instead, they do this nice bit where you get a closer up map, so that you get your full layout, and then you get the closer up map with the details, including special features and notes. All that stuff is really, really handy. I really like these overviews and notes and important NPCs. Each level has kind of an overview, and then you get the full monster list right there, which has, not in detail, but it has your basic stats, which you can use, which are great for when you need it on the fly. And then you get more for each particular quadrant is good. I think you can see how you can then pull out these and replace them if you want to. You get some nice notes in here. Null Terminator says, it looks like if you could offset your cover page, you'd get 2-page spreads for each quadrant. Yeah, maybe that's probably what they. Yes, yeah, they maybe they could have offset that, put an extra, or actually they have a blank page at the front. Maybe they would have taken that out. Or though maybe if it was printed, they want you to flip back and forth. Yeah, it seems like it would make more sense if you had it differently. But if I go up to the beginning, they give you this blank page here. It seems like they could have maybe taken that out, and that would have fixed it, or put one in here somewhere. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't this is the PDF. I don't know in the printed one, maybe on the off chance it's something that it's just Acrobat, the way the Acrobat's done it, and maybe you would get that. I mean, even if we had these offset though, I mean, this is tight. I'd love a little bit more room in here, but it's already 131 pages plus. So how big do you want the tome? I mean, I haven't seen the Lulu. You can print it out at Lulu, or you can buy a soft cover printing at Lulu. But it's a choice you make, right? Because sure, I could give it as much spacing and lay it in a beautiful way, and then it's 300 pages, and I'm like, oh gosh, I need to bring it back, right? Do I want to cut content? Do I want to cut, or do I want to make it more efficiently laid out? But that does maybe take a bite on the usability. And you do what you can. And plus, I think this is an older one. I think this probably was done. I'm not going to say, I don't want to say, oh, it's not a professional who did it, but I think a lot of things going on. Presumably, you could come in and give it a new coat of paint. You could maybe help out, because this is just it's tough. It's tough to read those. But other than that, and that's not even a huge deal. I think it gives you everything you like. I think looking at the maps, we're just going to look at the maps quickly, just in terms of variability. I think they're doing a good job giving us lots of different spaces, identifying all the spaces. I didn't see any, like I was mentioning a few minutes ago, I didn't see any kind of empty rooms that are empty. Ian says this came out in 2009. Let's see if it says when it came out. What does it say? Let's see. Design and cartography of Michael Curtis. Here, let's see, 2007 to two. No, that's for Labyrinth Lord. Probably 2009 because this is when the PDF. I'm sure this is probably when this came out. So yeah, somewhere in 2009. So there's been a lot of. Wait, we have a lot more experience in terms of modern module adventure dungeon layout. But I mean, this gets a lot right. You know, given that it's 12, 13 years old now, this gets a lot right in terms of what I would want out of my book. It just could I just probably could just use a little bit of tweakage here. Not a ton of images, which is fine, but the ones it uses I think are great. I don't need tons. I think the dungeon maps are all pretty clear. And again, I really like how it gives you these kind of zoomed in maps and goes in the areas. I think that's really well done. And I like that that's not where it cut corners, you know, because they could have saved themselves some space if they just said, okay, we're going to get rid of this. We'll just have a whole thing here and just make it, we save us some space. But they didn't. They gave us that, which I think is really, really good. You do get some new stuff in there. I think the layout of the dungeons themselves, I think, have those good points of interest. I see a lots of these kind of looping sections. We get some different kind of terrains in here. I don't know if we see a lot of. The one thing, unfortunately, is from this that I can't see is where there's that kind of classic Jacazing elements of do we have three-dimensionality. In Thracia, we have those elements where you could, you know, there's a big, you know, chasm, but that chasm takes you from level one, could take you all the way down in the fourth level. I mean, you probably die from the descent, but it gave you these kind of really interesting ways of accessing different parts of the levels. Haven't seen that here, but there was details I just didn't have a chance to look at because I'm trying to do this in an hour. So that might be one thing where you could probably tweak and add in, but they might also be there, and I just missed it. But overall, I can see just from this, at least at first blush, because I haven't played it, I haven't run it, so I can't say for sure. But how this gives me the tools, I think, to really just run the dungeon. I think I could probably take this canyon and level one of the dungeon, and I probably could run it pretty easily, I think, with fairly little prep. If I was just running kind of by the book, Labyrinth Lord, BX, whatever, I feel like I could probably run this pretty easily. I think I have all the things I need to at a glance. If I had my own printout, maybe I could just make my own kind of highlights. Again, I like the overview and these kind of sections for just giving me things I can read through. Okay, they're getting to the east part of the canyon tonight. Let me go ahead and let me read this. I got that. All right, I can scan these monsters and make sure. All right, they've got all the stats. Is there anything that seems really weird? No. All right, bam, got that. Okay, let me read the overview and these kind of sections and be kind of read. And I think that's really good. And I think having those for all the levels and then the parts of the levels is really good because for a mega dungeon where you're going to be going in there on multiple sessions, it's good to be able to reorient yourself, figure out where you are, get that heads up again of, okay, it's been a couple weeks since we played. They were in this quadrant. Let me go back and read that overview again so I can refresh my memory as to what's going on here. And then, bam. I mean, if there is a weakness, and I'm not going to call it a weakness, I think it's more of a style thing. You aren't getting like some kind of built-in ticking clock. This is what we need to do. Orcus is being summoned in the bottom level. We got to run down and get it. There's nothing like that. You can easily put that in yourself, but you're going to have to put that in yourself. But I think that what they're really, what they mentioned, this is their goal, is to give us kind of a complex place with moving parts that we can then utilize and build our narrative around or weave our narratives into or whatever kind of story, whatever story we want going on in the world, we can kind of weave it in ourselves. But impressive. Let me know if you guys want me to go further in there, and then maybe I could do sort of a read along where we go more into everything in super depth. But I just wanted to take sort of a higher level look at it, see kind of, well, what do I think really people really like about this? What do I think makes it kind of stand out as a product? If I was going to run a mega dungeon, would I run this? When having this as a product, even though I might never run it myself, what can I take away from this? I think there's some interesting things. I like the modularity. I like the way it's laid out in terms of the features. It gives us everything. Now, granted, if I'm running my own home game and I'm drawing my own homemade dungeons, I probably wouldn't take the care to write all this out because I only have to worry about myself understanding it. But I think, like they mentioned, yeah, if I needed at a glance, I just needed 20 rooms for something. Yeah, sure, I could take the out of time mine, for example, and run it, and just got to mark those exits and figure out if they go nowhere or where they go. So it's really cool. So thumbs up for me in terms of just this kind of at a glance first blush. Let me know what you think. Should I try to seek out the second part of Stonehell? Should I go through and do a more thorough room by room read? What do you think? And was this at all illuminating of anything that you feel like you could take back for your own dungeoneering usage, your own dungeon crawls? I really like the modular thing. Probably if I was going to take something away from my own dungeons that wasn't about just kind of ease of use, I like the modularity. That would be something I might take away and say, how can I build this in a way that I can break it out? It's a neat way of organizing, because if you think about, say, a level of your dungeon and having it in these, we often think about breaking things out thematically, but even though, granted, it's kind of a square quadrant, but inside of here, it can be however many rooms or shapes you want, but as a nice way of sort of organizing your dungeon. That's pretty darn cool. I like that, and I might steal that for myself. All right, folks, I am overtime. So I will let you go. If you give a thumbs up on your way out, that would be awesome. If you're not subscribed and you're in here and this sounds and looks cool to you and you feel like subscribing, that would also be awesome. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day or night whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.